Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Going to that, you start approaching these banks. So before that, you had to build your product, or you were already working on the technology part of it.
So coincidentally, I have not built the product, and that's why it was more challenging. So when I had started approaching banks, the first question was, where is the product? So of course I had to lie. I was like, yeah, it's just about to come out in a couple of weeks. So they're like, where's your office? And I'm like, my office is like this in the PKC somewhere. I used to get some fake address. My friends.
So investment banking helped you.
Yeah, so you learn all those things, right? So I think my office was mostly at that point of time was either the Hyatt lobby, because nobody used to ask you why you're sitting there, and I could have all the meetings or private lobby. So I used to spend most of my time there.
Okay.
But yeah.
And at what stage you started building the product, and how you went about
So,
doing that?
So as the first thing we did is, since I was not a tech guy and I had absolutely no clue about technology, what I knew is in terms of what is required to deliver the experience to the merchant and consumer, or what is required to operate a payment system. So this is the part I knew well. So I hired an external vendor who I knew from ICICI days, and I sought his help. I promised him that, okay, you make, so I did not raise the funding till then. So I promised him that, why don't you make technology for me on a SaaS basis? I will pay you per year transaction basis, because I wanted to de-risk myself that if I invest crores of rupees and then no transactions are happening, I end up going down. So I wanted to pass that risk to the company that, like, we will stick on as we grow, you grow together. And fortunately, that guy agreed, and it worked out. Where he built technology for me. Though it was, I think, I would say good or bad both. Good in the sense we could start the business. Bad in the sense that decision held us back our growth for next 2 years. So next 2 years we could not scale up well, because that guy started realizing after we got the funding that, okay, this guy is funded, so I should extract more money from him. So he suddenly sent me the invoice which was 10 times to the agreed price. So I was like, this was not agreed. I was like, okay, if you're not agreeing, I'll disconnect the system. So suddenly I could go down in a day's time. So we started negotiating, and in the negotiation I spent 6 months with him. And in the meantime, we started building our teams. So I think in the 8 months time, we built a parallel system. And actually there was a time where he actually disconnected without telling me. Fortunately, I think I was very lucky that just a month before we had built new system, and we were very ready that if something goes wrong, we can just switch over the system within a day's time. And we managed to do that.
So how did you go about building your team? I mean, you get a tech co-founder, or how did you start hiring about it?
So tech has been the most difficult, and till date I think is the most scarce commodity as such. So you don't get tech people very easily. So I went through my own set of challenges. So I hired the first tech guy, who was a senior tech guy, after I think 7 or 8 months of starting the company. Till the time I was relying on the external guy. So we hired him. It was a wrong hire because I had no idea how to evaluate a tech guy. Till date, by the way, I don't know. So we hired him. I think after a couple of months, once what happened, our system was down, and I asked him, hey, you know our system is down? He was like, yeah, I know, but I'll come to the office. I'm taking shower right now. I'm like, let this guy come to office. I'm just gonna fire him. But I had to hold on my cool, because if I had fired him before he made system up, I didn't know how to bring system up. So literally our system was down that day for 8 hours. Think of a payment system down for 8 hours, and hundreds of businesses depending on you. That means hundreds of businesses are down. So I think that day we lost almost. So it was I think 1 year ahead of starting the business. We had lost 80% of our business. 80% of our clients went away that day. So as soon as the system came up, I fired that guy without having any alternate tech guy. So that was the most tough call I ever took, where I was like, I don't care, but I don't want to deal with inefficient people. So that was the thing, but that taught me many things, that never depend on single guy, never hire wrong guy. So I started taking help from Sequoia, because Sequoia had come in by that time. So I started taking help from them in evaluating candidates. I started taking help from few of my friends in evaluating candidates. So I started doing all of that, how to evaluate a tech candidate. It was a big task. So we started building our teams internally anyway. So we had we started building. In fact, tech-wise, I was so challenged that I must share this story where I was like so paranoid that every sales guy also I used to hire a tech guy. So I'm like, my sales guy also should be tech, so some issue comes in, he can handle the system. So my ops guys were tech guy, my sales guys were tech guy. Like you should have engineering degree to qualify to come into sales. So that was a paranoia I had while hiring. So we ended up hiring a few good people, I would say, after the incident, and till date those teams are sticking on. And it's more of a gut feel which I hired initially. So my whole gut instinct was based on the passion level of the candidate, that how passionate that guy is when the tough gets going, whether he is ready to get shoulder on shoulder with me till 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the night, or whether that guy is like, no, I'm like looking for a 9 to 5 job. So that was a hiring criteria rather than the skill set, rather than the any other qualification.
How large is your tech team now?
Oh, now it's like half of the company's tech. So,
Okay.
so we have 260 people in the company, and 120 are tech guys. So now I would say our company is known. Literally, if you check from our competitors, investor community, our clients, they're like Citrus is the most innovative tech company when it comes to the offering. So it's clearly we pay huge attention when it comes to hiring tech and product guys. So and we have been very choosy. We rather delay our hiring, but we ensure that we don't bring in the wrong guy in the system. So after I fired my CTO, I don't think I get the next CTO till next 6 months. So by the way, I fired my second CTO also. So so he came into the system after 6 months, and then I realized that, so this time what I did is I hired an oldish guy. I thought the young guys are like irresponsible, they don't work well. So I hired a guy of age of 50, and he was CTO of Hangama earlier, and it was like proven names and all of that. I think he was out of energy, so I fired him after 6 months again, because at the speed at which I wanted, he couldn't match the speed of delivery. So, but now I can say that we are sorted in that segment, and the passion level is number one thing. We still look in the people. So if we don't care whether the guy has relevant experience, but he has to be passionate enough to do his job. So in fact, most of our sales, product, tech are not from payments industry. There are hardly 5 or 6 guys in the company who are from payments industry. The rest all are from non-payments industry.
So let's talk about fundraising. So at what point in time you decided that okay, you now need to kind of do fundraising? How did you go about? And so subsequently, how many rounds of fundraising have you already completed?
Sure. So I think we're fortunate enough that fundraising has been easier thing for us so far. And so I'll tell you my first fundraise experience. So we started the company in April, and and of 2011. September of or August of 2011, as usual, I was sitting in Hyatt's lobby to meet someone. And so he was just finishing his meeting, so he introduced me to him. The Sequoia partner asked me, "So what do you do?" I said, "I've started this company and trying to do something in payments." He was like, "So are you raising funds?" I'm like, no, I don't need any funding, because at that point I was also talking to a fund called Intel Capital. So I had estimated that in next 5 years we'll do like 20 crores of revenue and 1 crore of net profit, which is like more than good enough for my life every year. So that was the aspiration level. So I was like, that's good enough. So I told him that yeah, I'm talking to another fund, just raising 1 crore from them, and that's good enough for us. So he was like, can I ask you a favor? Can you meet me tomorrow morning? I'm like, yeah, if you're meeting me for fundraising, then I'm not keen. But yeah, generally, he said, no, generally I want to talk about payments with you. So I was like, okay. So I went to Sequoia office in Lower Parel, and when I entered the room, there were like all 7 people sitting in the room, and I discovered that they all were 7 partners of Sequoia at the point of time. And so they started firing questions, they started asking about payments and what's my thinking and all of that. And so I was a little surprised at what's happening here, but still I was like, let's go with the flow. No harm in answering what they're asking, considering all said and Sequoia is a great name to deal with. So after that, Mohit, who was the partner, he said, okay, fine, nice meeting you, you can go. So came home, I got a call from him in the evening, and he was like, how much money you're raising? Can you send me the projections, what you have made for the business? So I was like, okay. So I sent him the projections. So he called me back again literally in 10 minutes. So like, I looked at the projections. I think they are very, very conservative in terms of what you're trying to build and what you have projected. So he was like, let's say if I want to give you money, how much money you need? So I'm like, wow, this is Sequoia, so I should ask double. So I said, I need 2 crores. So then he said, okay, but your projections somehow don't justify a raise of 2 crore. So can you just revise it and then send it back to me? So I said, okay, I'll send it back. So I sent him back. Literally what I did is I did into 4, all cells into 4, and then sent him back. So the requirement became 4 crores. So I sent him back, and he was like, okay, I think I'm not convinced yet that in 4 crores you can build a business. So why don't you do something, just relook at the projections. I'm like, probably I'm doing too much of hurriedness. I'm sending him immediately in half an hour response. So I should wait for 1 day and then send him. So what I did is I said, okay, I'll take time because I need to think now. So I actually waited for the next day, and then next day what I did is I did into 8, and then I sent him all the projections, and then you were like, it then seems like you're not understanding what you're trying to build. I think this business requires millions and millions of dollars. You need to become more ambitious. I'm like, let him say whatever he's saying, I just want his money, that's it. So he was like, okay, how much stake you want to give? I'm like, 10% for 1 crore I want to give. So he was like, okay, let me do one thing, let me send you something, and then see whether it works out for you. So he sent me the term sheet within the next half an hour, and I saw that like there was a 10 crore ka term sheet for some 25-26% stake. So I'm like, wow, this guy's fool anyway, let's take his money. So it is giving me so much. And anyway, by the time I had checked with the industry people, and they were like, if you can get money from Sequoia, that's a great name, great thinking, and you should never miss that opportunity. So of course, by the time I got a bit of sense that I should somehow get money from Sequoia. So I was more serious in negotiating term sheet, more serious in trying to get them in the company because they were invested in PayPal, Google, Apple, Yahoo. So any payments company throughout the world which is successful and big, they had been invested. So so clearly it worked out. Literally in 3 days time, we signed the term sheet from the first time I met them, and in next week we got the money in the bank. So it was relatively easier experience. But I think looks easier when I'm telling the story. But I asked actually Mohit, why did you fund me?
Okay.
So because I don't think I gave you enough to fund me as such. And so he actually admitted that it was one of the fastest round he ever did in terms of meeting first time to money in the bank, which Sequoia actually ever did in India. So so he said, one thing which they got really impressed with, that being a non-tech guy, I had like at that point of time 5 bank contracts signed. So banks like ICICI, HDFC, Axis, SBI and Citibank had agreed to work with us. Formally contract was signed. So we're like, we have never come across a guy who without technology, without office, without employee could convince 5 top banks in India to work with. And that was like, if you could do that, then with money you can do many things. So that was the thesis, what he told.
That's great. That's really interesting. And what you narrated in terms of fundraising, I think that's like a dream fundraise for any startup.
Yeah, I actually admit that I didn't go through the hardships in the first fundraise.
So I actually heard a very similar story of one of the other founders whom we had on Stratup Grind. He runs this startup called My Dentist.
Okay.
Vikram Bula. So he had a very similar story. He was running business. He just is one of his ex-colleagues, so he was part of seed fund at one point in time. So it just happened, and they had this conversation, and he had with me, मुझे तो केवल 3 crore रुपए चाहिए, and they sent him for term sheet which said 8 crores. Right. And it's like, boss, okay, दे रहे हैं तो ले लो.
And one of the things which I've learned over years is to these guys, what matters at that stage is not the money they're giving. What matters is the stake which they're getting. Because think from these guys' perspective, that if they get like 30% stake and the company becomes successful, and even they don't want to pro rata participate, in a successful company they will still end up having 15, 16, 17%, which they must have got for $2 million, $3 million. So that's the thinking which goes behind giving you extra, but giving the greed of getting more stake.
So after that first round, how many rounds have further?
So we've done 2 more rounds after that. So so I think after the first round, we ran the business for 1.5 years, and actually most of the VCs till date in India tell me that they actually don't believe the business which we did. So far we spent just 10 or 11 million dollars in last 4.5 years, and the scale and the team and the kind of revenues which we have got, people still, the VC industry still doesn't believe that we have built the business in such a low amount of capital as such. So we've been very, very capital efficient as such, because I'm a Marwari by genes. So somehow I don't spend money till the time I see the return. But yeah, that has worked positive and negative both ways in the startup. But the second round we raised after 1 or 2 years, I guess, 1.5 or 2 years, and we raised from Japanese guys. So they had called us because they had seen citrus at few locations in India when they were visiting India, and again that was a kind of a dream dating where They had come first time to India, literally still unknown company in India. They had come first time to India and they happened to meet us because they were in the payment industry in Japan. And after 1.5 hours of meeting, they were like, we want to invest. I'm like, I've never heard about this company. I don't know whether it's a mafia money or what. So I need to understand what this company does. So I told them, okay, let me come back to you. So till a month I didn't respond back to them because I got busy in my usual work. Because we were not on fundraise mode at that point of time. They called back, they followed us back saying that what happened, you were supposed to come back in 2 days, you haven't responded till a month. So we are very, very keen to put money in. So I'm like, okay, it's getting serious discussion, so I think it's time to visit Japan. So this is how, so I went to Tokyo first time and interesting visit there. So they did everything what they should have done to please us so that we take their money. So it was finest of the restaurants, finest of the bars, and made us meet all the employees and clients of theirs just to show that how big they were. In fact, they are Japan's largest payments company. So, but it's just that Japan is a closed economy, you don't know much what's happening there. So, yeah, we were very impressed, we came very impressed, and another reason to consider them is, I think till 2013, the scale in the industry was still not coming up. So the digital population was still not that high where we started doubting on our belief that whether India as a market will ever grow. So we thought if we take money from these Japanese guys, probably we could enter Japan with their help, we could enter Southeast Asia with their help. So we started making all the strategies around how to go out of India. So that was the reason we considered them. And they promised also in all, they were like, they just want to give us money and take the stake. So they were like saying everything yes, yes, and half of the thing anyway you don't understand what they say. So we were like, okay, anyway these guys are giving us money, and those guys were like, these guys are taking us money and giving us stake in a market in India where they wanted entry. So both guys were happy, it was a win-win deal. Deal happened. By the time, and Japanese guys are very, very difficult to deal with, so they had promised that within a month we'll close the deal. The deal got closed in 10 months. So, so by the time deal happened, the market in India started changing. So clearly the wave, the digital wave started coming in India, and we saw it coming. And we experienced it, I would say. So suddenly I started seeing our business numbers started growing like 2x every month, 3x every month, 4x every month. And we were like, wow, we don't need to go outside now. This is the market where we want to be in and where we want to become leader. So that was the reason of taking the second round from Japanese guy. It's the third round 6-7 months back, but that was more of a private equity round, so late stage round.
Correct. Okay, so what were probably, so you talked about technology and how you kind of struggled and all. What were the difficult times that you would have probably seen in Citrus, where you would have probably questioned yourself, or you have thought कि यार ये मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ and stuff like that, or probably your friends or family would have really started asking you as to what are you doing. So were there any times, or what was it?
I think I would say the friends, family, fortunately were very, very supportive. Most of them are here today. But yeah, we have the difficult times, as I mentioned. After running the business for 1.5 years, we were still not able to achieve scale. And so where Sequoia started asking us what's happening, why are you not able to scale, is there any issue where we can help, and the usual boardroom meeting pressures started coming in. I would say the honeymoon period got over within a year. So After a year, we started seeing pressures. The revenues are not growing, it's stagnant or growing like 2-3% a month, so which is not good enough at such a low scale. So we also started doubting what's happening. I mean, is it that our thesis is not proving out? Is it that the market is not ripe enough to do payments business in India? And frankly, we are not able to crack any of the BillDesk accounts because they are like 15, 16-year-old players and very well entrenched into the payment system since 15 years. So none of our thesis played out. So we launched products facing merchants. So we were facing a lot of pushback from the merchants. So in India, any product value proposition you give to merchants, they started negotiating on price, which was a loss-making deal. So sort of didn't work out. We started launching the consumer-facing products, which didn't work out. So merchants were not giving us access to consumers. We did not have that many marketing dollars to spend. So we actually started questioning ourselves what next. And I would say the patience to hold on for that 6 to 8 months time frame really played out well. If we had broken down in that 6 to 8 months time frame where we were questioning ourselves, we did some amount of optimization on the team side where all the high cost resources we started seeing what's the best way not to hire new, what's the best way to manage within the hired resources. We started doing all of those things. But the ability to hold back in those 6 to 8 months really played out well, and we could survive the whole brainwave, I would say, which we had negative.
So this was around which time? 2000?
This was 2013.
2013.
So early 2013 till July 2013.
So one last two questions from my side before we open people to ask questions. So as a founder, what do you think is the role of a founder? What do you think is more critical for you to kind of look at? And second part, in terms of what is your experience, or what's really important for a founder as a quality, or what is something that you should always watch for, that okay, you don't give up, or what is the qualities in the founder that you think are?
I think when you start as a founder, you are typically doing every role, right from office boy to sales guy to product manager to pseudo tech guy to doing ops role to. Basically, you should be prepared for doing everything and anything under the sun. You should leave behind your baggage, what you were in your past avatar, what you were. So I remember my first office, which we took, was the second basement of a building where there was no washroom. So literally I had to, and I was in ICC BKC office. If any of you have gone into that office, it's like a swanky office. You get 7-course meal every day. So I was used to that, and then moved into an office which is like no washroom. The room was like like only 3 desks could fit in, 3 chairs could fit in. It was like that much size room. So you should be prepared for everything and anything. So that, but at the same time, the roles varies. The roles evolve because as you start building teams, I think the role more and more evolve around. You become more of a HR manager, where you have you focus more on hiring right people, because if you don't hire right people, you can never scale up. So this is where you should be very, very picky and finicky about which kind of people you are bringing in the team, because it's better to delay sometime hiring rather than picking wrong people, because the wrong people, taking him out of the system is a lot of pain rather than the pain which you are going through delaying time period. So that's so the HR manager role is the most crucial role which you play. Developing culture in the company where people see you more as a friend, people see you more as your colleague rather than as a boss. Because then if they don't trust you or in your ability, if they don't trust or have confidence in you that you will be able to sail the ship or you will be able to captain the ship. It's sort of very difficult to take them along in your journey. So that's second, and the third is I think the investor management. So it's almost your 20-30% of the time you have to manage your investors well, so that you can run your business smoothly. Otherwise, so it's like you have to strike a right balance. If you allow them too much into the business, it's sort of a huge pain. At the same time, if you don't update them what's going on, if you don't update them what's your thinking behind what you're doing, then also it's a huge pain, because then they're in dark and then they start firing all the questions which you will be like frustrated. So you have to strike a right balance between your day-to-day job, investor management, hiring right people, delegating them, because also when you hire people, especially senior people, I mean generally people like us have a habit that okay, I'm smarter than that guy, I can do this better, let me get into solving the problem. I think that's the worst thing which you can do to them who you've hired and to yourself, because then neither you're freeing up your time so that others can do their job, nor the other guy will be happy because he is not getting responsibility and authority to do the job. So that's one of the very, very critical aspects. What is the second question? I'm sorry, I forgot.
No, so what are the qualities in a founder?
I think I kind of addressed it. The key quality is, I would say, the ability to hire right guys. This is one of the super critical quality. Your one downs, if you can hire right one downs, I would say your 90% of the job is done. So that's a very, very critical. I'm talking about the funded startup. Otherwise in an unfunded startup, of course, you need to manage your wife well, so that she doesn't trouble you when you are in office for 18 hours or 16 hours. So that's the most toughest part, because you're out on dinner and then you're checking your emails, you're checking your phone, and then she walks away from dinner and then you don't realize. So it has happened with me a couple of times.
So by the way, all those who don't know, I mean, Jitendra's wife, she's here, and it's good that she's here because we know the other angle also.
It's all true.
But I think you must somehow learn to strike a balance between your professional life, because it's like your kid which you are growing up with. A startup is like your kid. So you tend to get so involved that you forget every other thing. If you are passionate enough, if you're doing it just for hobby or fun, then this is a different thing. But if you really want to make it work, you have to be super passionate. That doesn't matter what the world says, doesn't matter. Of course, you have to listen to everyone, but at the same time, remain engaged and passionate about your startup. That can make you sail through tough times.
Good. Cool. So now we're open for questions. If I can just have a quick show of hands, and I can kind of go around. Start from here.
Hi Jitendra.
Hi.
Two questions. One is you are non-tech, but did you implement the security in your system so to avoid the fraud in the transaction? One. And second thing, what I gather, there are two types of this inbound transaction and outbound transaction. There are two types of things which happen on online payment. So on that, could you throw more light?
So I'll address first guys. So I think at any point of time in our company there are at least 15 to 20 people who are working only on ensuring the security and the safety of the system, and how to protect consumers' money, because as I said, it's a kind of an infrastructure play. If the infrastructure has some issue, that means millions of consumers are impacted, and we can't afford to have that situation. We can't exist if that situation exists. When you say second question, the inbound and outbound transaction, I didn't get in what respect?
Well, what I gather is, suppose I went into Shoppers Stop
Right.
and they have some system where you can have a transaction of their own. It doesn't go out. That is called inbound. Though it is online, like, sort of. Where the outbound is, you can have the open leg. That is what I gather.
So I'm still not getting your question, but I think if you are saying that when the transaction get originated from the merchant location, that's the only transaction because we have our APIs which are published on the web. Merchants can consume those APIs to initiate the transaction, and this is how the flow of the transaction works. So the outbound I'm assuming is a response to the transaction. So of course those APIs itself are sufficient enough to give response back. I'm not sure whether I got your question right.
Hi, my name is Mansi, and I'm hoping that you're feeling a lot better now that 1 hour is done. You're feeling a little less nervous. The session so far has been fantastic. So one of the biggest reasons I came for your talk was because I'm a non-tech person and a founder. So was there, I mean, now that you have like such an elaborate team of so many tech people, just when you were starting out, was there ever a moment when people said that maybe you should have a co-founder who's who's a tech person, and you were tempted, and did you ever think that the 2 years that you were outsourcing and that you should probably take it in-house? Do you think outsourcing or having it in-house was like and sorry, the last bit, you just said that you got a co-founder in the last 1.5 years when you actually started it in 2011. So what took you so long to get it?
No, so by the way, I didn't say that I got a co-founder in the last 1.5 years. I just mentioned one of the guys' name who now happened to be my business partner. But yeah, I had co-founder when I started. It's unfortunate that he's no more with the company, but he was more responsible for the product side. But at the same time, your first question was, I think, how to manage the tech side of the thing, whether I should, in hindsight, whether I feel I got tech co-founder. I think where Citrus is today, I think we would have been way ahead if I had tech co-founder. So personally, I feel that we made many compromises just because I did not have tech co-founder. So our speed was significantly impacted, and this, of course, there are various reasons where I had to fire my 2 CTOs because they were not matching up to the speed. And when there's a tech co-founder, you never worry about whether he will match up your speed or not, because he is equally passionate towards the journey.
Yeah, I'm Upen from Bigma.com. Basically, one question you answered right now. Why did the co-founder left?
So I think the visions going forward was not aligned in terms of. So my other co-founder Satin, he is very passionate about the banking system, how the banking system works, and how it can drive the saving habits in consumers. And while Citrus vision is simplify payments, so clearly as a board in Citrus, we are very sure where we want Citrus to head to. So our goal is wherever the payments is a problem, we want to simplify the experience. So that's the clear vision, and this is where we'll keep investing money and resources. While his vision was getting disaligned from company's vision, where he was, and to some extent, I also believe in his vision, but where to prioritize your resources sort of becomes a question mark. So his vision was more aligned towards how to drive saving habits through an app, how to drive insurance selling through an app, where there is a one financial hub which could own the consumer financial needs. So that's the vision, in fact, he's trying to drive.
Does he regrets now?
I don't think so, because he is very passionate about that. So he actually has started a company in that respect, and he just set up that company like 2 months back. So, of course, it's a long journey which he has to go through.
One more question. How many times did you think of quitting?
Yeah.
Oh, many times. So, yeah, so I think especially not now, of course, but in the first
Initially.
in the first 1.5 years, yeah, many times when you don't win the deals, when you don't win the customer, when your system goes down, when you're one of key employees leave, when so there are many events where you feel like quitting, but at the same time, I think personally, I would say I'm more tolerant and patient enough where I'm actually least impact. I'm very, I would say, unemotional towards things. So, so where I'm able to absorb shocks much easily as compared to many others. That's what my wife's feedback is to me. So, so I'm believing that feedback. But yeah, it has happened many times where we have gone through difficult situations, and I'm like, doesn't matter. Let's just not get distracted by what has happened. Because so my belief is there are circumstances if you can control, then you worry about controlling the circumstances. The circumstances which you cannot control, why worry about or take action unnecessary? Because then anyway those are beyond your control. It's the external factors which are giving you all those jitters.
Can I have a word with you after this event?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So we'll probably try and go this way.
Okay, hi.
I
Hi. Well, first I wanted to say thank you so much for sharing your incredible story with us. You've delivered it with such humility, and it's really amazing to hear this story.
Thank you.
And as we discussed before, my background is in solar energy, and particularly consumer finance for solar, and digital payments play a big role in our business. We have an office in Kenya where M-Pesa is running wild. And I'm curious, I know you talked a lot about kind of the C2B interface of mobile payments. But how about sort of the P2P, peers, just individuals sending each other money over mobile phone? Where do you see that going in India, and what's sort of held it back until now?
Sure. So I think we have tried P2P, and we're still trying, I would say. So we have tried in Feb 2014, where we launched an app which was more targeted towards solving the payment experience between two individuals. We failed miserably. We ran the product for 6 months, and we realized that the Indian consumers somehow still trusting banks more than non-banking company to do their payments to each other. So we could not drive that product very efficiently. We failed like miserably. But as we speak, we are actually making a second attempt into that segment, because personally I am highly convinced that doing a bank transfer between two individuals is a very, very inefficient process today. So that's one area where you will see a lot of innovation happening. Now, in what form factor the innovation happens, I have no visibility, no clarity. We'll try some 5 or 6 things. I want to see what sticks. At least today, I don't know what will stick.
Hi, this is Kunal from SaveIdeas.com. Wanted to ask you 2 questions. First, many times it happens in, like, I normally meet many startups. They are normally scared that somebody will take my idea. They will steal.
Right.
Did you ever face that thing? First thing. And secondly, as you have recently got funded, so what's the vision? Because there are many mobile wallets, other things are coming up. So is Actors going the same way, kind of a mobile wallet or some kind of a payment services? Or like what's the vision?
Sure. So I think the first question is very interesting because this is where even I come across many people who feel scared that somebody will steal their ideas. My personal take on these things is I think ideas are worth judge. It's the execution which matters. So if you have ability to, and you will see that there is like Yahoo versus Google. It's not like mailbox was the idea which Google introduced. So how you execute is the key differentiator between one business or one entrepreneur versus other entrepreneur. So at least in my opinion, ideas are worth judge. Rather, it's good for an entrepreneur that you should discuss the ideas more and more with your family, friends, fellow entrepreneurs, because then you will get new perspectives and new insight which you may otherwise be in your world that you're super convinced because anyway you're passionate about that idea, but you may not see 360-degree view of the idea. So that's my take. Second, on the mobile wallets, I think personally I see the value in mobile wallets in terms of the arbitrage opportunity which is there, a card payment experience versus a wallet experience which exists today. But I don't see the reason why mobile wallet should be used, or actually I would say the PR or the journalists have made it more high for caps kind of use cases or for a small value transaction. I see it as a clear differentiator and a better experience as compared to paying via card. But in payment industry, the thumb rule is very clear. If a new technology or a new experience is not simpler than paying via card or paying via cash, it can never work in long run. So mobile wallets have a similar view. It will work for micro transactions, but for a transaction above $10 or $12, the consumers will still use their credit card, debit card, bank accounts, because there is no sense in transferring money from your interest earning bank account to a non-interest earning non-banking entity and then use that money. You're doing that today because of cashbacks and discounts, but I don't see use otherwise.
So, Citrus is not doing that way.
So we are, so as I said, for the micro transactions, we will yes push wallets and all of that. But as far as our core products are concerned, they will focus more and more on simplifying payment experience on mobile. And we are working on a couple of ideas I can share because I don't care about ideas. So one of the ideas which we are introducing in March sometime, and I'm sharing first time outside the company. So one of the ideas which we are working or which are introducing in March, where so today if you look at when you every month a consumer on an average makes 5 or 6 payment transactions for sure. So either you're going for a movie, you're ordering food, you're ordering grocery, so you're doing all these transactions, and the transaction value is like $3, $4, $5, $6, and every time you're going through the same payment experience, where either you use wallet or you enter your card, CVV, OTP, and there's like 5 steps for 5 transactions. We are coming up with a product where on mobile specifically, if Citrus knows you, you actually can separate out your buying and a payment experience. So you just say buy this bottle, done. Buy PVR ticket, done. Buy tiny out food, done. Buy Grover's grocery, done. You don't worry about payment. Payment, we will send you a bill. You pay to Citrus in 14 days. So that kind of product which you are launching, it will clearly change the way payments are done on mobile.
Yeah, you just spoke about cashbacks and discounts regarding the M-wallets. How do these companies manage to give so much of cashbacks and discounts?
Like Chinese money, yeah. I mean, it's all investors' money. So if I have to give from my pocket, I will never give.
So what is the plan of action? Like today they can probably invest, and few years down the line, people will stop investing and ask for returns. What will be the reaction then?
So it's not few years down the line, but that has started happening already for the last 3-4 months, where actually I would say that it's tougher now to start a business as compared to 1 year back, because 1 year back the funding scenario was like very, very upbeat. Everybody, if you were an IITian, or if you were a BETS guy or an IT guy, it was very easy to get funding if you had a good idea. On an idea basis, people were raising 2 million, 3 million, 5 million. For last 3-4 months, actually the tides have turned completely, where investors are asking more and more questions around how to make money, when you will become profitable, when you will be doing break even, what's the revenue model. Earlier I remember when I was raising Series C, and when I was telling investors that I will become break even in next 3 months or 4 months, like we don't want to discuss that. You just tell us how many consumers you'll bring on board. So it was more the factor of that. But last 3-4 months have been a completely opposite market.
So according to you, in few months down the line, probably these apps like Freecharge and Paytm and all these major business holders right now will probably go in loss.
I don't have any specific view to comment on, but I'm assuming that their investors, if they have enough appetite to go through all this, they will go, and I believe that the investors like SoftBank or Alibaba have enough appetite. So these parties will continue for some time. But otherwise, the others like MobiFig and all that, I'm already seeing some kind of pains there.
Hi. I just wanted to ask, are you going to venture into the brick and mortar stores like POS and all?
So again, my question is, or my answer is same, that till date we haven't figured out the way or the experience which is simpler than paying via card or paying via cash. The day we come out with that experience, we will, because our company vision is very simple. Simplify payment experience, own the consumer, provide the experience which is better than what they experience today.
Sorry, my question was actually, are you going to start giving your services to the stores, like in-house swiping or something of that type?
That market is already, like every store you walk in, there are like 3 boxes lying there. So I think fundamentally we have not been in the mindset of running capex heavy businesses. So I don't think so we'll go down that path unless we have reasonable justification that we are doing, either we are bringing some change in experience or we are introducing a product which is much better than today's existing product. We haven't experimented, or neither we have come across any such thing, at least till date.
So can Mr. Sabine come back to you? Yeah, go ahead.
You have an innovative idea and you want to implement it, but you have a co-partner with you and he doesn't support you. But then you have a passion about it and you have foresight that it might go on. So what is the next step you can go about it?
I think the advice is very simple. If you are not able to convince your co-founder, that means the idea has many flaws. So because either convince your co-founder by getting 10 other people who are convinced by your idea, because I don't think so if you've chosen your partner, he will be irrational guy you may have selected. So that means you are rational enough, or you are irrational if you have selected an irrational guy. So from that perspective, I don't see that situation that why you should not be able to convince your co-founder.
And secondly, like you're from CA background and you went for a technical viewpoint of idea. So there are many criticisms against it, like you cannot go forward because you don't have much of idea about it. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, you do face all of these situations. Now no more, of course. If you look at even like Kunal Shah, he's a good friend of mine because we play poker together. So I mean, even he is an economics grad. I don't think so that sort of hampers you in a long run. I think what matters is the execution as such. So first 1 year or so, yes, people are apprehensive about your ability to execute. But as far as you're very clear about what technology should deliver and how your clients or customers should experience the technology which you're delivering, if you have that clarity, then it's just the coding. You don't need to do everything in a startup. You have to hire right people to do that. Otherwise, you may very well say that I should do a customer service job also because I can do better than a call center agent. I mean, that's not the way.
Hi, I'm Tarak from Gupta Education. So thank you so much. I learned a lot from what you said till now. But I have two questions to ask you. So question one, I'm sure when you started up a company, you had something like a vision, right? A clear-cut vision on what problem you're solving.
Right.
How much did your product deviate, or at today's stage, are you exactly matching your vision which you started off? So every entrepreneur here probably has a vision which they're solving, right? But with ups and downs and people coming across, your vision changes and your product deviates, right? So what was your journey in this? And like, are you today at the same pace which you wanted to solve, same problem you're solving? Question two is, you said that the main thing that a founder should be is like an HR manager, which I totally believe in. But being an HR manager is more like selecting the right people, but at the same time, managing those people is a problem. So tasks to give, reviewing them, finding out what they're doing, and making sure that it's value for money for you as well is something I'm facing difficulty at. So I'd like to hear your insights on that.
Sure. So your first question was related to the vision and the product alignment.
Right.
So I think the vision, we are still sticking to the core. So our vision was very simple, that simplify the payment acceptance experience and simplify the payment experience for consumer. So payment acceptance is the merchant side and payment experience is the consumer side. The product has changed 360 degree or 180 degree, I would say. So product has completely changed in terms of what we started with, but we have learned every month, or nowadays we learn every week, every 10 days, okay, whether we are thinking right. We do a lot of customer validation, we do a lot of deviation from our product path. But as far as the vision is concerned, we are still sticking to the core, which is simplifying payments. And I don't think we will ever change that.
Okay.
The second question which you asked, how to manage your people, I think that's the toughest of the thing, and this is where I think one of the things which at least worked out for me is where you have to lead from the front, in the sense it cannot be that, hey, I am a boss and I'm leaving at 5 and do this task and then work till 8 or 9 and then the task should be finished and I'll review it when I reach home. It cannot be a situation like that. So clearly your team has to believe in you, your team has to believe in your vision. And so I'll give you one specific instance, in fact, which is very, very interesting. So I had hired my sales head, who is still there, in April 2012. And in May 2012, I got, one of the consultants called me up and he sent me. I was shocked that, okay, this guy joined me a month back and he is again in the market. So, so I actually asked him that, what is, are you looking for a job? He said, yeah. I asked him, why? You just joined here like 30 days back. So he said the reason, because I don't believe that this company can grow big, because at that point we were processing like 5 lakh rupees worth of transaction a month. So he was like, I don't believe that it can grow big, because to make revenues you need to process hundreds of crores in a month to make significant revenues. So like from 5 lakhs to hundreds of crores, I don't know, I will get old, I guess. So by the time you reach to that stage. So I actually of course took him out for drinks and all of that, and I told him that, you do one thing, just stick on for a year and I will deliver this for you. Within a year we'll reach to that stage, and till a year don't ask me any question, just believe in me. I think till date I make joke of that guy because he is still one of my very, very dear team member. He is still the business head in the company. We process now more than $2.5 billion worth of volume every year. But he was like, you know, I feel so lucky that I believed in you that day, because otherwise I would have never seen this journey. So I think what's important is you have to show your honesty, you have to share it every time with your people, what you are going through, what challenges, in all honesty, and why you're doing certain actions in the company. Because if you don't share why you're doing certain things, those people will be heavily disconnected always, and they will never get aligned with their vision. And if they're not aligned with their vision, it's the situation of reviews and doing all of that will always appear. So you have to align people with your vision, that what you're trying to build and how your actions are leading to that. They will always be aligned.
Yeah, hi, Ratish Gupta. So my first question is, in the next 10 to 15 years with the entire sort of industry changing as quickly as it is, where do you see the future of the payment industry 15 or 20 years down the line? And what role do you see Citrus playing in that entire future? That's the first question. And the second question was, I remember you mentioned earlier in the talk about the number of ideas that you had. Why was it that Citrus was that one idea that you decided to go ahead with, despite the technical challenges that it had vis-a-vis the other ideas, which were probably easier to execute?
Sure. Well, I'll answer the second one, but that's the easier one for me. So the reason I chose payments as an industry because what I realized when all of these private equity guys were calling me for advising them on payments, investments and all of that, I'm like, when I was thinking about what idea, I'm like, wow, these guys are paying me for consulting them on the payment industry. So I'm adding value to them, that means. So that means there is some value which I have, which I don't know. So rather than adding value to them, I should add value to myself. And actually that was the real reason I got into payments. Because that means the external guys are saying, yeah, you know in payments something which they had value. So it was easier decision to go towards payment. And of course in my ICICI days, I had worked in the payment strategy, so I had a fair idea and contacts in the industry. The first one, where do you see Citrus? 15 years, like too long here. We plan only for 1 year and 1.5 years.
Where do you see the industry though?
So I think the industry, personally I feel this is the most fascinating industry and the most de-risked industry in India today. Because again, thesis is very simple. The smartphone penetration is like 100 million smartphones, 110 million smartphones. Internet penetration is like 17-18%. The day with Reliance Jio 4G connectivity coming in and with so many 4G good phones coming in, I think the pie is going to expand from 14% of population or 15% of population to at least 50% of population. That means more transaction of existing users and the increased pie. So clearly this is an industry which will be, if not a $1 trillion industry, it will be at least $500 billion industry in next 10 years.
Hi, thank you so much for sharing your experience. My name is Shravan Nadani. I wanted to know what, according to you, are the biggest unsolved problems in fintech or problems which have not been solved well enough?
Yeah, I don't look at other industry now, but yeah, in payments, I clearly know what problems are, and which is what we try to solve. So clearly, one of the big problem in payments today is the payments on mobile phones. So what has happened is when there was a desktop-based payments happening, so consumer was at ease, the connectivity was more stable with the broadband connectivity. So the success rate or your attempt to success transactions were like 85-90%. But because more and more people are accessing internet first time through phone and the connectivity is very shaky, so the success rate has gone down to 70%. That means for every 2 good transactions, 1 transaction is failing. So clearly it's a huge opportunity which exists in fintech space, or which we are trying to solve. Another opportunity which exists in fintech space is which again we are working on, and I feel there will be many players in that space which should exist. So all small sellers who today sell on social channels. So let's say a cupcake seller who's selling cupcakes on Facebook, and somehow when they have to collect payments, they actually put in their account number, and then they say, okay, they coordinate, and then if they, let's say she has 5 cupcakes, household lady, and the 10 requests which is coming, now she will struggle which 5 to cater to, which 5 not to cater to. So the whole process of fulfillment and payment is very, very broken today. And there are million odd sellers who are selling on social channels. And I feel that million number will go to at least 15-20 million people. So, so that market will explode like anything.
Hi, I'm Suraj Mehta. I'm studying at HR college. So I wanted to actually ask you, so for example, if I have this idea or this, basically this concept that I want to work towards, like you discussed that you wanted to work in the whole payments industry and tap into that. So if I had an idea or a concept that I want to tap into, but probably because I'm young or probably because there's not enough that I know about the whole business or the startup atmosphere or entrepreneurship in general, like what exactly would you like have to share with me as advice on what my next step should be? Like simply based on the fact that I have a concept or an idea that I want to tap into and that's something that I've researched about or worked about.
I think first of all, being young is not a constraint because I'm sure you must have heard about this guy Ritesh Agarwal, who is the OYO founder.
Yeah.
I think he's 21 now and he started the company at 17. So I'm sure you're more than 17 now. So that's not a constant factor. But at the same time, I think one of the things at least which I have learned, because many people, now slightly people started approaching and all of that, and sometimes it becomes a little irritating when people discuss ideas with you, because what happens is that themselves have not fleshed out the idea. So I would say the best thing to flesh out your idea is you make slides and write your idea, your plan, because when you write, you come up, you think at least 10 things. What is the flaw in that? You don't, you address the obvious things when you're writing the idea, when you're writing how you're going to address it, how you're going to execute it, how you're going to scale it, how you're going to take that dream to a realization. Because then plethora of things open up which you may not have thought when the idea was just in your brain.
And like, so for example, if like this planning thing that you're saying, like I've basically like if I've made like formulated a plan and all of that, like in terms of like looking for finance or like starting operations and all of that, like how do you think the whole process should flow? Like in brief, if you were to
You're asking a very tough question. So I would say it like this, you should always do the MVP, the minimum viable product. Forget the finances first, rather focus on how can you have even a small set of 10 people trying your product, what you are thinking of, validate your idea, take that 10 people thing to 100 people, validate your idea, and automatically you will start seeing whether you're going down the right path, not going down the right path, and then finances and all that will, either your family will help or external guy will help. If people are seeing there is enough juice in your idea, what you are doing.
I can give you an input. So there are a couple of platforms like Startup Next and all, or Startup Weekend. So what you do is, the Startup Weekend gives you like 2.5 days. So where your idea with the help of other people can be fleshed out and created something which is more executable. So that can help you. And then you can think about from there on as to how to kind of, so you can connect with a lot of mentors there who can kind of then help you.
This is Startup.
Startup Next and Startup Weekend.
Thank you so much.
Come, you had a question?
Yeah.
I think the guy after you has a question as well. Okay.
So fine. I think that. My name is Desh. Thanks for giving us so much information on the scene of Citrus payments. Things, from what I understand about your business at this point in time, is the basic moat around the business is customer experience, technology, and people.
Right.
Now, this is something, in my opinion, which can be replicated. So customer experience can replicate, technology can replicate. 5 years down the line, or 10 years down the line, I mean, what is it, one factor which will ensure that Citrus payment continues to, so let's say when the growth goes out, you have many competitors, you can replicate customer experience, you replicate technology, mean, what is it, one factor which will ensure that citrus retains market share, retains its pricing power, and continues to probably grow in a second?
So in the beauty and payment businesses, it sort of does not go down overnight. So because it's not a consumer app, which is like there in consumer hand and suddenly consumer gets another app and he starts using that rather than this. It's a infrastructure. So the infrastructure means there's a pipes laid with merchants, and like till date, we have been in the market for 4 years odd now in operation. We haven't been able to displace BillDesk as a player, and the reason they have laid pipes with few set of merchants which are very well entrenched. Your offering to them is very well entrenched. So it's not just about always about the experience, but it's all more about as you sort of scale up the relationship with the customer, because it's a B2B kind of an offering when it comes to the merchant acceptance. So in a B2B offering, your relationship matters a lot, your account servicing capability matters a lot, your ability to deliver something or other thing new to that client matters a lot, how you are updated with the new trends, that matters a lot. Because then beyond that, the margins are very thin in this industry. The margins are like 20-25 basis point. Now that's the margin play which somebody is playing in. Now in that, let's say somebody gives a discount of 10 basis point or 15 basis point, the client is not going to move away. It's like, for what? For 15 basis point with the impact maybe few lakh rupees. So I'm like, rather I would work with a guy who I know, who I better equipped with, unless I don't innovate, unless I don't catch up with the trends which are there in the industry. So the reason we could enter into the market because there was no experienced layer which anybody had built before we entered the market. So in terms of how a consumer experiences the checkout with the merchant, how a merchant experiences the analytics at the back, how a merchant experiences the recon at the back, everybody was going through Excel sheets and everything. So we sort of we addressed that part, and this is how we could get entry into the market. After us, actually, there is no other payment company which has come so far. So there is one company which recently has started now, Razor Pay or something out of Jaipur, I think, but I haven't seen so far any the product. Of course, we watch our competitors very, very closely, be it small or young or big. I haven't seen any product or experience difference so far in any of the new companies which have come.
Okay. And just one another question. Any plans for taking now investments to the next stage, either IPO, going public, or being bought out? Any thoughts?
I think right now we are sufficiently capitalized, and this IPO and going listing is like the thing where you have many more hassles which you bring in along in terms of compliance and filings and regulations and all of that. So I think we want to remain agile. So we definitely have no plans for next 5 years to go on the public side. We definitely want to grow fast, remain private and grow faster and address the bigger market opportunity which is coming up in next 5 years. Because when you are when you remain private, you have much more agility in moving things, changing course, changing, even if your revenues are not meeting the estimates for a quarter, doesn't matter, because you can explain it to 3 people who are on board rather than 3 lakh or 3 million people who you need to explain. So those are the things I think next 5 years clearly will remain private, and if we need capital, we'll raise it, because now fortunately we have reached to the stage where the capital raising, the new capital raising for us is not that difficult. I'm not saying it's easy, but not that difficult because there is a base of business which is growing on its own organically. So we are growing almost 4 to 5x every year. So that's taking it very well.
Only one question, like how many times have your systems have been hacked or fraud transactions have happened?
So our systems have never been hacked, fortunately. because I think our tech teams are very good, and we also use cybercrime hackers, professional hackers, the red hat hackers, who we give them assignments to hack our system so that we can see what are the vulnerabilities, and we in fact then so nobody has been able to crack our firewall so far, and then we actually allow them to come inside the firewall, and then we ask them to get into the card data system, whether they can read the card data ever, and so far, so there were a few vulnerabilities which we have addressed, but external threat has never happened.
Rajan, I've been consulted to the industry on regulatory and compliance issues, especially from government relations. I'd like to know, since this startups are being mushrooming all over India on this space, typically we are going through a startup age now. Now, what kind of a role that you think the government can play in your industry? Is it the current government policies and government system, is it a drain or a boom to the system? What kind of specific policies you expect from the government?
I think we had in fact, I'm sure you must have read, there was this Startup India Summit which happened in Delhi with the Prime Minister. So, fortunately, and that was one of the most encouraging things which have come across from the government side. So, was part of that, and we highlighted things in terms of, so basically one thing which came out very clearly is the lesser the government intervenes is better for the ecosystem. So, so I would say we don't need help, but rather we don't need intervention. That's the best help we can get.